Survivor's ready. Go!
Travis spoken.
This island is pretty much full of only two things: snakes and rats.
The fake dead grandmother could easily go down as the dirtiest thing ever to be done in this game.
I am the king, and I am back.
But I've got the $1 million check written already. I mean, I'm the winner.
The winner of the first Survivor competition is Rich.
Direct from Hobart, it's now time for the only dedicated radio show in Australia devoted to the hit TV show Survivor, bringing you the latest news and the biggest interviews from the king of reality television. It's Survivor Oz, and here's your host, Ben Waterworth.
Yes, hello everybody, and welcome once again to Survivor Oz, Australia's only Survivor radio show / podcast, and the #1 TV and film podcast in all of this great big land of ours, well, at least for 1 week. But we can still say that because it happened, so technicalities in your face. We are here for another Survivor exit interview from San Juan Del Sur. The 5th eliminated contestant, Kelley Wentworth, is about to join us here on the show to chat about her time on Survivor, and very much looking forward to this. As a lot of people who listen to the show know, I was a fan of Kelley's, and I actually had money on Kelley because we have our Survivor Oz sweep where we all put in $10, we draw a random name out of the hat, and then if that person wins, we win the kitty essentially at the end of the show. And I had Kelley. I was pretty confident that I could at least get to Final Tribal Council and maybe just win a runners-up prize or something along those lines, but unfortunately that's not how the cookie crumbled. I will thank everybody who sent in listener questions today as well, because we got a record amount of listener questions for an exit interview, so a big fan base out there for Kelley, and that's something that I'm sure she's going to be very happy to hear. And if you're hearing this on iTunes or on Stitcher and you haven't gotten this via our website, just a reminder, our Ozlet extraordinaire Noah Groves puts out a fantastic pre-episode preview, otherwise known as a preview. Didn't really intend the pre before that. Episode 6 preview of this week's episode is online with this interview, so get out there, check it out. You can see kind of some tips on what's happening tomorrow. There's no spoilers. We don't tell you who's going. We don't know any of that sort of business. And as last week, we sort of warned you that there was spoilers about what the tries are going to be after they switched. There's nothing like that this week, so just, you know, your general preview on sort of what going off the actual video previews that CBS put out. And on the article, we do provide that video preview. We've got Kelley the next day after being voted out, her video interview, her final words, and the voting from the Tribal Council, as well as a couple of hidden scenes from last week's episode as well. Enough of me talking. You're here to listen to Kelley. Let's bring her in now. Pleasure to welcome to Survivor Oz the 5th eliminated contestant from Survivor San Juan Del Sur, Kelley Wentworth. Kelley, welcome to Survivor Oz.
Hello, thanks for having me.
It's a pleasure to have you here, Kelley. I mean, I think I need to say on behalf of the entire Survivor fan community of how disappointed we were to see you voted out, because I don't know if you're aware, you've got a very big fan base out there, Kelley. We're all still devastated.
Oh my gosh, I'm devastated too, and I just want to say thank you everyone so much. I'm super bummed out that I'm not still in the game and I can't be out there making some moves and making you proud, but I really, really appreciate all the support. So I don't think you've seen the end of me. Don't worry.
Well, we like to hear that, because I will say that out of all these exit interviews so far, we got the most amount of listener questions sent in for this week. So all the fans out there have been sending me a lot of questions to get to you, which we will get to a couple of those perhaps at the end.
Oh, cool.
But, I mean, you're such a big fan of the show, Kelley. So, I mean, you've gone out there, you've got this opportunity to play the game that you love. I mean, when you get out there to play it, what is sort of the biggest thing that you noticed as different compared to watching to actually playing the game?
Well, it's so different once you hit that beach, because there's so much build-up. You know, you're flying down there and you have all this kind of pregame stuff and you're just ready to go. And then, you know, when you're watching at home, you don't realize how quickly everything starts. I mean, I had a conversation with Jeremy 5 minutes onto the beach. I had a conversation with Reed 10 minutes onto the beach, you know, and your wheels are always spinning, what am I going to do? And is this the right choice? And it's just so difficult. There's so many elements. So I would say playing, it's it's very, very intense, but fun at the same time.
Yeah. Now, you mentioned the Jeremy alliance sort of straight away. I mean, we saw this in that first episode, and it seemed really from that point on that you're in that alliance with Jeremy, and, that's kind of all we saw of that. I mean, was there more to this alliance structure at Old Hanapu? I mean, was that basically it? Jeremy, you guys all together, and that's sort of the, quote, control alliance before the switch?
Yeah, absolutely. So it was kind of funny because watching the first episode, it looked like, Jeremy was kind of running the show. And I definitely think that everyone thought that they had an alliance with Jeremy. But there was a lot more strategizing than what you saw. I mean, I definitely tried to talk to everybody. Well, I mean, Drew was kind of in his own world. But everyone else, I mean, I had conversations with John. I talked to Missy. I even talked to Keith. And, we were talking to everybody out there. So the core alliance, I would say, was Jeremy, me, Natalie, Missy, and Julie were kind of the five that were running things before the fall.
So seeing the edit that Jeremy's getting, he's getting a lot of people talking up how he's playing at the game. Do you think maybe that's a little bit much? Like, is Jeremy not as in a good position as he is seeming to be?
Well, it's really interesting because I think Jeremy was playing a great game, but I also think that he was trying to make relationships with everybody and almost make an alliance with everybody, and that can either work for you in Survivor or it can totally go against you. So we'll see, how he kind of gets back in the tribe with these new singles and see if he uses that to his advantage, or if he just kind of waits for the merge, if he makes it that far, and gets in, tries to work it with some of the old people that were on Hanapu that are on Koyopa. I mean, we'll see. I think he was playing a pretty decent game, though.
I have to keep an eye on that. You mentioned Drew. Now, last week we saw Drew very much targeting you. Was this kind of a surprise that he was going after you? Was this building up from something that we just didn't get to see?
What was Drew's problem? Oh my gosh, I'm still just like, I spent all this time with him at Ponderosa. Oh dear God, save me. And I'm still just like mystified as to what kind of happened there. I'm not sure why Drew targeted me. I guess if you've only seen an episode of Survivor, maybe it is intimidating to be against someone who's seen every season. I'm not really sure. I think what it came down to is that I didn't stroke Drew's ego like other women probably do in his everyday life. Sorry, Drew, but that's just the fact of the matter. And so I think he kind of just was, maybe he almost was offended that I didn't kind of come on to him and get in an alliance with him right away. So that's all I can really think of. I mean, it doesn't really make sense.
That's I think that's a good way of looking at it, actually. And hello to Drew if he's listening. We've said some interesting things about him online in the last couple of weeks, Kelley. But good on him.
Yeah, I've seen some good, some bad. I've seen the ugly. Drew, I think you kind of did it to yourself, so sorry.
Sorry, Drew. Now, as such a fan of the show, the tribe switch obviously is something that often happens in Survivor. You get to go on a tribe, New Koyopa, you get there with your dad. Do you have much of a conversation with him before you go out there to play of saying, look, if this happens throughout the game, if we end up on a tribe together, this is a plan, and is that thrown out the window as soon as you see the structure of the tribe when you are on New Koyopa?
Well, we did have many conversations going into the game, kind of who are we going to vote out first if we have to go to tribal first, who are we going to kind of make an alliance with, because we did have that night zero and we had seen all of the other contestants. So, we did talk about all those different scenarios. I will say, though, when the tribe swap happened and you have three couples together, I don't think they could have planned that any better. What are the odds of that? So we did talk, strategy and talk scenarios, but once you're out there and you've kind of built these different relationships with people, any strategy you had when your loved one gets involved, it's kind of out the window. Like, it's almost like starting over.
On paper in that scenario, it would seem that the obvious thing to do might be for all three of the couples to team up and then target Keith and then just have the three couples kind of working together. Was that discussed, and why wasn't that kind of put into fruition?
Yeah, it was definitely discussed, and I will tell you that I did have a good relationship with Missy. I've kind of seen the past few days that people seem to think that, oh, Kelley didn't build relationships with everyone, but I really did. The problem is that Missy and John just had a stronger relationship. Coming into the show, John expressed to us that, there's stuff going on with his father being sick, and his mom was upset about some things and didn't talk to him a few days before he left. So I think he was really looking for, a parent out there, and Missy was on the Hunapu tribe and really provided that for him. So going over to Calliope, they were very, very close, and they were closer than I was, and I was going after John. So it just, all the numbers just didn't work out, and I think Missy may have known that Keith had an idol because, Keith told me that he and Missy were in an alliance, so, I'm sure he told her that he had it. I'm not sure. But it was talked about.
Yeah, it's kind of interesting that we talked about a lot that last week on one of our shows. I mean, the edit itself, the night when you go home, I mean, it seemed kind of to be between Dale and Baylor, and then all of a sudden you go home. It was a shock to us watching this, Kelley. How much of a shock was it to you? Did you think if anyone was going, it was going to be your dad and not you?
Oh, no. I knew it was either going to be me or Baylor. And I kind of chuckled a little bit when they made it look like a blindside because I'm sitting there thinking, they can only show so much, but there was so much that was not shown, and the viewers did not get to see. And I knew it was either me or Baylor, and I thought there was maybe a 5% chance that John and Jacqueline were going with us. I told my dad before Tribal, I do not feel good. People really won't talk to us, or they'll say 2 or 3 words. I really do think it's me tonight.
We've got one chance here for one more question here, Kelley. Now, we've got a listener question, as I said. We've got a lot of these in, and I want to thank everybody for sending them. But Jaden Osborne sends in the question saying, if Hunapu had lost the first few challenges instead of Koyopa, and you guys were forced to go to Tribal a couple of times in the early episodes, how do you think you would have fared, and who do you think would have gotten those boots?
Yeah, so I will tell you, there was a lot of talk about getting Reed out if we went to Tribal, the very first Tribal, because he just stirred up some drama with some people. I was always okay with Reed. So, I was a fan of him. I wanted to work with him. That didn't really work out because of him going a little too hard too soon, but he was definitely talked about. Also Keith. I mean, Jeremy was, out to get Keith. You saw that whole exchange. So he was on the chopping block. And then, we had talked about getting John out from day one because he's such a strong guy, and Jacqueline's a tough woman. So we were like, we can't have these two in the game, down the road. So that was kind of the pecking order.
Would have been very fascinating to see. I know Drew last week talked a little bit about this whole thing against Reed, and it's surprised a few people, I think, Kelley. So it's kind of interesting. We haven't seen a lot of that. But I will say thank you very much for your time here. It has been a huge pleasure having you on the show. Thanks for speaking to us here in Australia. And we look forward to getting you back on the show in the future, maybe post-season. We'll have a bit of a longer, more in-depth chat with you about the show. How does that sound?
I would love that. Yeah, definitely. Sounds great.
There you go. Kelley Wentworth, fantastic to chat with her there. And we didn't do the word association this week. We, as I said, wanted to get to listener question because we got a lot in. And clearly we only sort of get a very limited amount of time with the contestants each week in an exit interview. So we are unable to get to many listener questions. We generally only get to one. Sometimes if we can fit in 2, we'll fit in 2. But so for everyone who sent in a listener question is bit pissy that we didn't get to yours. I apologise. It's just how the time frame works. So, as mentioned there, we'll try and get Kelley on. We will get Kelley on post Juan Del Sur to have a longer chat because we obviously have the goal of interviewing every single contestant in the history of Survivor, and it's just a fantastic opportunity that we've been able to do these exit interviews for the first time, but we're not taking them off the tally. I don't know if people have noticed that on our website, that we were not counting exit interviews as a interview as such off our tally. So while technically we've interviewed all 5 of the people who've been eliminated from Juan Del Sur, and eventually we will have a full season of exit interviews, we're not classifying them on our interview count because they are only short 10-minute interviews, and we want to get them back on for long, in-depth chats to really go over a lot more of the finer details of their games. So stay tuned for that, and for people who sent in the questions to Kelley, we'll keep them on file and we'll eventually say get them out there, or just send them in again when we get that day. I will take this opportunity to quickly thank, as I always do, CBS and Channel 9 for making these happen. Fantastic opportunity, as I just said, so we appreciate them being able to do this. Our Survivor San Juan Del Sur coverage continues this week with episode 6. Our Oztopsy will be live 10:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings time, which is of course 10:30 p.m. Thursday post Survivor on Thursday night. So tune in live for that, or of course you can download and watch it after it goes to air. Our episode recap this week is with Gillian Larson and Bob Crowley from Gabon. The winner of Gabon, of course, Bob Crowley, and the mother of Survivor Oz, Gillian Larson, the woman who all helped this show get into place. So, look, we'll put a post up about that in the coming days for you to get your questions in. But again, if you always want to jump ahead and get your questions in for them, feel free to do so now. And also, our rankings will be coming out now. We're a bit delayed this week on the rankings. At time of recording this, we haven't got them out yet. We are actually just waiting on Sandra to send through her rankings. So, we will need to get them up today. And if we don't get Sandra's rankings in, we're going to have to do a 3-person ranking this week and give Sandra a week off. So look, when you're the Queen of Survivor, you can get the rankings in late. We're not going to go off at you, but just for people questioning where this week's power rankings are, so next week they will of course be there as well for episode 6. And I will, of course, mention that we've gotten a few interviews out this week. As promised last week, I apologise for them taking so long, and I said we'd get them out. We've done that, and that means we've only got one more to get out now out of the ones that I promised, and it's the big one, the Cass McQuillan interview. We are planning on getting that on Friday. Clear your schedule, 2.5 hours long, and one of the funniest and, open interviews we've ever had on this show. And I'm very much looking forward to hearing your reactions to the Cass interview. So that's hopefully happening this Friday. Stay tuned for that. And just on a side note, if you're also a Big Brother Australia and Amazing Race fan, Big Brother Oz will be out later today as always. And of course, the Amazing Race Oz, hosted by Noah Groves. That is 2 to come from last week's episode. So stay tuned. This has been the Kelley Wentworth exit interview. Thank you very much, everybody, for joining us. Remember to tune in to Survivor, 9:30 p.m. Australian Eastern Daylight Savings Time on Go on Thursday, and of course Wednesdays 8 p.m. on CBS, 8 p.m. Eastern Time, 7 p.m. Central. Check your local guides for more details so you don't miss this week's episode of Survivor. My name is Ben, the Tribe has spoken. Thank you for your company, and we'll speak to you next time on Survivor Oz on the trains.